Welcome into OutKick the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having a fabulous Tuesday here hanging out with us. I got a lot to dive into. Want to say off the top, love all of you at YouTube. We are starting to do Clay and Buck responses in the comments on the radio show as we are growing our audience there. And we have started to do it as well. So if you hop in the comments and you ask funny questions that you would like me to answer, the staff is going in, they are grabbing them, and I will do at least one question, at least one question every day in this program directly from the comments. So if you go hop in the comments, click like, subscribe, whatever for this show, and the team is going to go through and pick. If you like a question and want to elevate it, I assume that the more likes something gets in the comments, the more visible it is. So even if you're not asking questions, if you think a comment is funny, if you think a question is funny, go click the up button there, and hopefully the team will be able to see what you have out there for all of us to be able to see. Now, let me dive in right off the top. A lot of stories that are out there. And I actually want to start with two different stories that I think actually have a lot more in common that have not been discussed at least so far as I have seen in connection. And that is WNBA players at the All-Star game walked out in Pay Us What You Owe Us t-shirts. And Stephen Colbert was fired. They ended the program in general. And you might say, okay, well, what do you see as the connection between these two? I think it's basic economics. And let me explain. Right now, I'll start with Colbert. The Colbert Show, according to reports, loses $40 million a year. Stephen Colbert himself makes between $15 and $20 million a year. Reportedly, the budget for that show is $100 million. I would submit to you that there is no daily show in America anywhere else that loses $40 million a year. And I would virtually guarantee you that CBS would not, Paramount, whoever you want to point to here, would not have canceled the Colbert Show if it were making them any money at all. What this is reflective of is business realities eventually come to bear. And so I think it's the height of arrogance to claim that somehow you're being censored when you are losing tens of millions of dollars. I would expect tomorrow to be fired on the Clay and Buck Show if we were losing money at all on that radio program. I would expect on any show that I've ever been a part of in my entire life that if I am losing money, whether it was when I was doing local sports talk radio, whether it was when I was doing national sports talk radio with Fox Sports Radio, whether it was when I was doing the Fox Bet Live show, and now Clay and Buck, I would expect at any point in time, if I were doing shows that lost a substantial sum of money, I would expect that the corporation wouldn't continue to do it. This is why I started my own company, because I wanted to control advertising, because I wanted to make sure that we were making money and that I didn't have to rely on somebody else to actually ensure that the shows that I was doing were profitable. That was one of the major impetuses behind the idea to start OutKick. So it would be super arrogant of me to come and sit here like Stephen Colbert did and say, oh my goodness, I'm being censored. Dude, you're being paid a huge amount of money and CBS is losing a huge amount of money and your overall audience is collapsing. That's why the show got canceled. And I feel like, let me tie this in with the WNBA, I feel like basic economic reality often escapes the people who write and talk about media for a living because they just don't understand it at all. Right now, the WNBA is on track, according to the New York Post, to lose $40 million in its most recent year. The WNBA has existed for over 30 years. I think, team, correct me if I'm wrong on this, they've never made a profit. I would submit to you There is not a single other business in America that has existed for over 30 years and never made a profit. So what I would see as the connecting tissue between Stephen Colbert and the WNBA players who walked out in the Pay Us What You Owe Us t-shirts is you're actually overpaid relative to the success that you are putting out into the marketplace. Stephen Colbert, your show loses $40 million a year. Why do you deserve the right to continue that show? WNBA players, you should be paying your ownership $250,000 each to cover the loss that your salaries are helping to create for the league. Not understanding basic economic reality is not limited to Colbert or to the WNBA players. It's actually a huge issue across all of America. This is why we're partly in $37 trillion in debt. People don't understand how they make money or how to make more money because employees, by and large, just presume that all they have to do is shake the money tree. I learned this the hard way. In 2011, I've told this story before, but I was writing at Fan House. I loved that job. There are probably several hundred of us total employed at Fan House. I went into a discussion about the future of sports media, a panel discussion that was happening inside of the Titans Stadium. I'm sitting there. I turn off my phone, which I almost never do. When I turned it back on, all of us had been fired. The entire asset had been sold to Sporting News. I was out at Deadspin before. I was out at Fan House, and I just said, I'm never going to allow anybody else to determine whether I can feed my family or pay my mortgage. I didn't have very much money. In 2011, I was down to making basically $45K a year doing a daily sports talk radio show at 104.5 The Zone. I had a 3-year-old and I had a 4-month-old. Had a wife working full-time as a guidance counselor. And I just decided, and this is no great shakes for me. I know a lot of you have had this experience before, and it's why you started your own businesses. I just said, I don't want to ever rely on anybody else to pay me for the rest of my life. I'm going to learn everything I can, continue to build on what I know about digital media, continue to learn how radio works. I don't trust anybody to make sure that I'm on a profitable show if I don't control it. And so all the way from 2011 until I sold this company in 2021, every single month we made more money than we spent. And every show that I've ever been on has made more money than it's spent. And so I expect to make money, but I expect to understand the underlying economic realities of what I do in order to justify that money. I don't think the average WNBA player does. I don't think Stephen Colbert does. It's easy to come up with reasons for why you don't have a job anymore. I would submit almost all the time the answer is what you did didn't make enough money for your boss. That's the reality. And once you take ownership of that, there's actually a great deal of power. Whether you're working as a mechanic in a car shop, whether you are working as the front desk girl at an insurance company. All of your jobs are predicated to some extent on whether you make your boss money. And I am stunned by the number of people. This is me getting on my soapbox and giving advice to all of you. Figure out how to make your bosses more money. As soon as you unlock the key of the business you work in, and understand what you can do to make your boss more money, your life's going to go a lot better. Because whenever people make me money, it's a lot easier to work with them. But I've had a lot of people in my time as a boss come and say, hey, I expect more money. I'll say, actually, you're not making us any money. Why would I give you more money? Learn how your business works. It's been my experience that 90% of employees, I'm talking about for-profit businesses, by the way, 90% of employees just have no interest in understanding how the business works. They just want to get a paycheck. They're not concerned at all about whether they make money. And I suspect Stephen Colbert and the WNBA players are in that boat. And I would just say, I'm never surprised when things don't work out going forward. If you're not making money, you're expendable. If you are making money, typically the company is going to give you an opportunity to make more money. And if you run the company, as I have done before, your goal is to make as much money as you possibly can, because that's how you grow and that's how you get better. And so the connecting tissue that I would say exists for Colbert and for the WNBA players is they're both being exceedingly arrogant and expecting more while not producing enough for their ownership. Now, if you want to talk big picture, and this is a bit more complicated of an analysis, how do you assess, and this is, I think, really one of the big battles going forward, how do you assess the value-added increase in franchise, and how do you assess that when it comes to analyzing revenue for players? And this is why, if you look at the WNBA All-Star Game, this is why, to me, the big threat for the WNBA should not be, hey, I want to make $25K more a year. I expect for us to get 30% increases in salary or whatever the heck it is. You're thinking too small. I said this before, Caitlin Clark, your threat should be, hey, I'm going to start a new league. I'm just going to be honest with you. A lot of those WNBA players are being paid far more than they are worth. Pay us what you owe us implies somehow that the owners are stealing from the players. 90% of WNBA players are being paid way more than they're actually worth. Caitlin Clark is being paid way less. And this is why I said, Caitlin Clark started a new league and said, hey, I'm just going to take the top 6 teams, let's say. We're each going to have 10 players. What's the math on that? 60 players? Am I doing that math right? I think. We're each going to have 60 players. It's going to be the best 60 women's basketball players on the planet. And all of us are going to make a lot more money. And we're going to start our own league, build our own franchises. I'll have a franchise. The other 5 best players will have franchises. We'll give each of the players on the team equity in the league going forward. That's the play. And then go out and sell that to a new streamer. The leverage Caitlin Clark has is when her rookie contract is up in 3 years, she can walk and start a brand new league. I'm being honest with you from a business perspective. Pay us what you owe us. Caitlin Clark is probably worth several $100 million right now to the WNBA. Now, the risk on that, if I'm looking at it from the starting a new league perspective, is Caitlin Clark's only played in half the games this year in the WNBA. She didn't play in the All-Star game, and the overall ratings collapsed. This is not a league. This is a player that has a huge fan base. And so what happens, God forbid, what happens, by the way, here are the T-shirts if we want to pull up the shot so people can see if they missed it. What happens if Caitlin Clark tears her ACL, God forbid, as often, unfortunately, female athletes are far more likely to do, tears her ACL next year, comes back, tears her ACL in the other knee, and over the next 2 years only plays in 10 games total. Her value collapses and the league's value collapses. So the risk here is anytime you build something around the one talent like Caitlin Clark is, her health and wellness is paramount to the overall value of the league. And let's say Caitlin Clark tears her Achilles tendon like Tyrese Halliburton did. Any NBA player, any one NBA player tearing his Achilles tendon or tearing his ACL doesn't really impact the overall viewership of the NBA. Might go down a bit, like pinpricks, because the league is bigger than any player. Caitlin Clark is bigger than the league. And we have not seen very many examples of this in the history of sports. If she tore her ACL or, God forbid, had an Achilles tendon tear like Tyrese Halliburton, WNBA ratings probably tank by half, maybe more than half. We've never seen a player have this impact. So when we put up that shirt, let me look at it one more time. Pay us what you owe us. Caitlin Clark is actually owed a ton. Most of the rest of the WNBA, they're overpaid. And the only reason they would get any increase in salary at all is because of the Caitlin Clark situation. And there have been a bunch of memes going out. I believe we have I owe the NBA. They made new shirts because the WNBA has been subsidized by the NBA. And there were all sorts of memes going around of people. But I think what connects these two stories, and I haven't heard really anybody connect them, is both Stephen Colbert and the WNBA players in general are misunderstanding the larger context in which they are being paid. All right, another story that is getting a lot of attention. Donald Trump has said the Washington Redskins should come back. The Cleveland Indians should come back. I think we have a couple of examples. We can pull those up. I'll keep talking. You guys can see the Truth Social post from President Trump here. And let me tell you my brilliant solution to this issue. I don't know if we still have my poll where I put it up, and 97% of you said, hey, yes, the Washington Redskins name should come back. I don't know if we have. I think we do. Let's pull that still up and show it for everybody. Tens of thousands of people voted in this poll. 97% of my audience said bring back the Washington Redskins and the Cleveland Indian name. Now, I said it on Twitter. I'll say it again. I understand that my audience is not 100% representative of the larger audience that cares about this issue. But I do not believe if you put up the wokest possible person out there and they said the opposite of what I'm saying here. Hey, do you want to keep the Redskins name the same? I don't think any left wing, I don't think Keith Olbermann's audience, I don't think Dan Lebitard's audience, whatever the most left-wing sports media member you can think of is, whoever that is, I don't think they would vote 97-3 that we have to stay away from Redskins. But here is my solution. The Redskins are talking about building a brand new stadium in Washington, D.C., near the RFK site. Josh Harris is the owner of the Redskins. I believe I am correct, guys, that the Redskins, a.k.a. Commanders, the Washington football team, has not put out any statement about this at all so far. Trump has a leverage here from a negotiation perspective because there's hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more, in taxpayer abatements and taxpayer support surrounding this new stadium that the federal government is directly involved in because this is a Washington, D.C. site inside of our nation's capital. Here's my solution. I think it would solve everything, and I think it would be super cool. Do a walk into the new Redskins stadium. Do it where the team does a pregame walk on this path like a lot of college football teams do it. They don't really do it in the NFL. Along the pathway of this big development that they are doing, put statues of prominent Native American, Indian icons, historic figures of themselves in full regalia with the headdresses, everything else. Pick, 10 or 15 different Native American heroes, do fabulous statues of them, and intermix with all of those Native American statues the great statues of Washington Redskins players past. Sort of a Hall of Fame. Combine it with Native American leaders throughout history and call it the Redskin Walk. Tell me why this wouldn't be incredible. Honor all of those Native American leaders. Remember that many Native Americans consider the Washington Redskins name and the headdress and the logo to actually be honorable in the same way that so many people associated with the Florida State Seminoles, for instance, the Seminole tribe, they love being connected to Florida State. Why can't we combine these and as part of the new stadium, create a brand new walk-in that honors Native American contribution to American life. Maybe put in Jim Thorpe, I believe, one of the great athletes of all time, and honor Native Americans as well as all of the past Washington Redskins great on a walk of honor that the entire team walks down every single pregame. Tell me why this isn't a better solution than constantly being obsessed. And by the way, I would argue the same thing to replace the Guardians in Cleveland, bring back the Indians, and honor them. Tell me what I'm missing here and why this wouldn't make complete sense. And to me, it solves the issue once and for all of all of this. So anyway, that is my argument for what should happen here. Okay, what do we got? Do we have the audio of Elle Duncan? I'm going to do the unbelievable. Did that get added, Adam? Did that get rolled over? I believe we have audio from the WNBA All-Star Game of a joke that went viral. We talked about it. This was from the WNBA All-Star Game. Basically, the joke is that the All-Star Game, much like the WNBA game itself, much like a trip, I think the joke is just like a girl's trip to Cancun, there is no D in the WNBA All-Star Game. And this was Elle Duncan. Do we have the audio to play of that, or is mine good enough? I think we have the audio. Let's see if it can be played here. If we do not have it, just text me that we do not have it. But in the meantime, let me defend Elle Duncan and do the unbelievable here. It's going to be a sec. So the file didn't play when they tried to fire it. So let me just text me when we're ready, and let me explain my position on this. I give credit to ESPN for bringing Shane Gillis out. We talked about why I thought Shane Gillis's ESPY's monologue was a big middle finger to the woke contingent of ESPN. Elle Duncan is the moment of silence person in 2022 against the Florida so-called Don't Say Gay bill. She is one of the far left-wing people at ESPN. And people got mad when she made the joke, the no D in like a Cancun girls trip. So my take on this is we shouldn't try to cancel anyone for jokes, even if I think those people are morons. Here is the video of that joke, at least a still, so you can hear it for yourself if you missed it. Let's play it.
Season long. So, all right. Yeah. Well, again, we hope it gets a little bit more competitive because, like a girls' trip to Cancun right now, there's no D. It's a 22-point game for Team Collier. That's a walk-off. Sabrina Ionescu, there she is from the four-point circle. Second half action from Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Tips after this.
Elle, you're in timeout.
Okay, done.
Can you make fun of the joke? Yes. Can you question why in the world it should be airing during the middle of the afternoon on the WNBA? Yes. Should you be calling for consequences for a joke, even if it landed flat and you think it wasn't particularly funny? In my opinion, no. I think we should all joke more. I think white, black, Asian, Hispanic people, everybody should joke more. I think men and women, everybody should joke more. I think gay and straight, everybody should joke more. If my position is, and it is, that sometimes comedy should make people uncomfortable because comedy allows us to get at truths that otherwise are unaddressable. And if I'm going to defend, as I did, Shane Gillis's right to get up on the stage at the ESPY and make a series of jokes that might have been offensive to a variety of people from a variety of different backgrounds, and if I am going to defend Dave Chappelle and countless other comics over the years, then to me, I'm going to defend Elle Duncan, even though her comedy bit there landed, I thought, flat. And let me also expound on this. I've written it in my books. I think it's in this book. I know it was in the previous book. One of the things that we got wrong about the social media era was treating social media as more significant than the real world. And I want to hammer this, and I've been hammering it for years, and I think I'm winning because I think it cuts through the noise, and a lot of you acknowledge it. I like to go to comedy clubs every now and then. Zany's right here in my hometown of Nashville. Been to it a lot over the years. I have met a lot of friends. Some of them have been on the programs. You guys have heard from them who are comedians over the years. If I drive by Zany's in downtown Nashville and somebody is about to perform and there are protesters standing outside of that comedy club, and they are holding up signs, as we saw happen back when Dave Chappelle was being protested at Netflix because he was making jokes that made trans people uncomfortable. I said, hey, you know what? What would you do and what would I do? We would look at these people and think to ourselves, man, you are a total loser. You have decided to spend your day standing outside of a comedy club complaining about the jokes that are going to be told inside of it. Yet, that person would have traveled to the comedy club. They would have gotten poster board. They would have made a sign protesting about what was going to be said. And they would stand in the heat, in the cold, in the rain, in the snow, whatever the weather was, and they would directly own what their opinion was of the jokes being told there. And do you know how we would respond? Almost every single one of us would drive by and think to ourselves, man, what a loser that is. What kind of person protests jokes they don't like? Just move on. If you don't like the jokes, go do something else. Don't buy a ticket. Yet when somebody picks up their phone and they decide to clip a video and they say, oh my God, can you believe so-and-so said so-and-so? We've got to cancel them. That joke is not appropriate. Everybody treats that person who might be anonymous, who certainly hasn't had to do anything other than pick up their phone and grab a video and slide it over and share it, as if somehow they're worthy of being treated more seriously than the person would who was protesting a joke in real life. I think this is so important. We have allowed the fake world of the internet, social media, to be treated more seriously than we have the real world. Every one of you out there, just about, if you saw somebody protesting at a comedy club, would ridicule them and you would move on. But if the same thing happens on social media, somehow, oh, we've got to take this seriously. We've got to be concerned about the feelings of somebody because of a joke. Or we've got to decide what's appropriate line for humor and what's an inappropriate line for humor. My argument is, let's just all have more jokes. And if you don't like somebody making the jokes, just don't consume their content. Don't buy a ticket. Don't watch their shows. Find other things you like more. But the idea that I'm ever going to try to cancel somebody because of a joke, or I'm going to try to get somebody fired because of a joke, I don't think I've ever done it. I'm open to somebody pointing it out. Sometimes I'll say, hey, you're too dumb, or hey, I don't think this person is talented enough to actually be able to have the job that they do, but not because of a joke. Like, we should have more jokes. We should all laugh more. We should all take ourselves much less seriously than we do, and we should use humor in real life and how it makes us feel in terms of people trying to protest over what people do on their phones. I think one of the things that we're pushing back on now is that social media led the country in a variety of directions. Much of them were wrong. And I think if you look back in the 2015, I just wrote a book about it. So if you look back from 2015 to 2022, which I would argue was the beginning and the rise of peak woke sports culture, I don't think anything got better. I really don't. I would say this all started pretty much with either Michael Sam or Caitlyn Jenner, ESPN giving them the ESPY for courage and bravery, when it had nothing to do with actual on-field product. It was entirely a product of identity politics. I think it grew all the way to Elle Duncan in the middle of a game on ESPN having a moment of silence. And I think it continued all the way up to Leah Thomas winning a women's swimming championship as a man. And I think it led to Trump winning in 2024. And I think they had a realization that things were broken inside of ESPN when they missed the national anthem and the teams running on the field and the moment of silence for the terror victims at the Sugar Bowl the day after the terror attack in New Orleans. I think ESPN suddenly realized, holy crap, we've got a major culture issue in this company and we have to fix it. And I think that's what led to Shane Gillis's comedy. I think some of the bosses at ESPN, this is my theory, I don't know this to be true, but I think some of the bosses at ESPN said we have to fix this. But I don't think you cure a culture that is broken, and I think sports culture was broken for some time by trying to say, oh my goodness, this person made a joke, even if I disagree with their politics, and they should be fired. So there you go. I'm defending Elle Duncan. You're welcome to her for actually standing committed to principle of comedy over the political elements associated with it. Couple of other things that are out there. Let's see. What did I scribble down? We're in the process of deciding what the future of college football is going to look like. And you're hearing the Big Ten Media Days going on right now. Last week was SEC Media Days. Big 12 has had their Media Days. ACC is having their Media Days as well. And news just came out that Texas A&M spent $51 million on players. There's news out that Kentucky is going to spend of their $20.5 million, 45% of the money on it to men's basketball. I think everybody is figuring all this out. To me, where it's going to end up, I think we're going to end up with a 16-team playoff, and I think the top 5 champions are going to be in, and then I think we're going to get the next 11 best for a total of 16 teams into the playoff. I also think the SEC is going to go to 9 conference games. This is my prediction. I think it's the best result. SEC goes to 9, 16, 5, and 11 is the method. Now, I don't dislike the Big Ten's idea of saying, hey, 4 automatic bids, and we play 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5, so that effectively you have a 6-team playoff every year. I don't think that's a bad idea. I think it's actually a really great idea, but I don't think that is the direction that we are going to go before all is said and done there. Scotty Scheffler, I don't know that we have the video of this, but I loved, as a dad, watching him win the championship as he did at the Open Championship on Sunday. The British Open, as it's colloquially, that's a tough word, called. And I loved his son crawling on the turf beside him as he was in the process of accepting the claret judge. These are tough words, the claret jug. We do have a screenshot of that. Let me put it up for you. And then Nike turned this into a ad. Because, look, fatherhood matters, and we put it side by side. I believe this is an OutKick tweet with Dylan Mulvaney. And if you look at that, it to me represents the shift in the way Nike is addressing sports. Instead of identity, let's award excellence. And I believe Nike lost its way. Colin Kaepernick was connected to all of this when they started putting people like men in Nike gear, like this Dylan Mulvaney thing there, when they started just putting fat people in Nike gear and being like, hey, look at you, you're an athlete too. No, you're just a super fat person who should eat less and be in better shape. And no, you're not a woman, you're just a man wearing women's clothes. This is weird. What Nike should do, and I believe what all of sports should do, is celebrate the meritocracy, celebrate excellence in sports. The best man or woman wins, and the best man or woman deserves the payment for the results from that. And I believe that is what Nike is now moving towards. F1 movie review. Loved it. Went to go see it with my wife, Laura, over the weekend. It was a fabulous movie. Zero woke attachment to it. I would say basically it was Top Gun Maverick in a race car. You had an old guy trying to prove that he still had the mojo. You had a young guy who was learning alongside of him. If you are looking for a good summer film, I can't speak to the authenticity of the F1 aspects of this story, but I can tell you I give a full-throated endorsement of F1. Fantastic summer movie. I would encourage all of you to go check it out. Yesterday, news came down that Cam Ward was going to be effectively the number one quarterback with the Titans. I didn't see this get a ton of attention, but Will Levis, a guy that I never believed in, and on the day he was drafted, I said was not going to work out. I watched way too much college football. I watched Will Levis play for Kentucky for 2 years. I saw him for what he was, a big-armed guy that did not see the field particularly well. And in the NFL, having a big arm does not keep you employed if you don't see the field well. I did not trust his decision-making. And what happened? He got out on the field, and he bombed for the Titans. And I think he was bitter over the way that he was treated, because otherwise I can't explain why the season ended for the Titans the first week in January. Why would Will Levis decide in late July, right as training camp starts, that he is going to have surgery on his throwing arm and be out for the whole year? This feels to me like a FU to the entire organization, because you could have had surgery in January, tried to work your way back to being able to be on the field. Instead, you wait until the team comes back, and there's supposed to be a competition to see who the next player is going to be, the starting quarterback. And instead, you just walk out and say, hey, I'm not going to be a part of this anymore. It seems like this is a no-brainer and a total failure there. Coldplay concert, I talked about this. It went mega viral over the weekend. To me, it's just evidence the difference between real life and public and private life is diminished. I do give credit to all the sports teams. I think we have a video here to play, or is it a still shot? I'm not sure which, of different teams kind of having fun with the viral moment of Coldplay. Here it is. You see guys kissing. This is, I believe, inside of Philadelphia. Credit to the Phillies, something that I don't say very often. Praised it. Or defended Elle, Duncan, and now I'm going to defend the Philadelphia Phillies. You can see everybody reacting here, and then they go to the Philadelphia Phillies mascot, and they are caught, the male and female Philly mascot, and both react as the couple did there. If they hadn't reacted, this is not a story. But I think the distinction between public and private is diminishing in a hurry. And I went on Fox News and I talked about this, and this is me analyzing the law. The entire basis for Times v. Sullivan, which is one of the most important decisions the Supreme Court has ever rendered, is that there is a difference between public and private figures. I would argue the internet era has completely eliminated any distinction between public and private. Everybody is now a public figure, and we need to readdress and reassess how the media should be treated in an era when, frankly, any one of us, any one of you watching or listening to me right now, can go from 100% anonymous. Basically, the only people who know you are the people that you know in your real life, from work, from church, from school, from your extracurricular activities, to suddenly everybody knowing you basically in the whole country, and there is no distinction. And so to me, this is legally why we should have an examination of how this should be treated going forward. But I have said this for some time. I'll continue to reiterate it. The line between public and private doesn't exist anymore. It used to be, back in the day, your name might end up in the old newspaper just twice, once when you were born, once when you died. Now, whether you're Nicholas Sandman, a high school kid who's on the school trip to the Lincoln Memorial, and somebody grabs 30 seconds of a video and suddenly you're on CNN, you're on MSNBC, you are everywhere and you've done nothing wrong, but everybody starts to attack you. They figure out who you are. I feel fortunate because I got a big platform. You might have just heard one of the police officers in the Breonna Taylor case called into Clay and Buck today and told his side of the story. Said, hey, one of the big challenges out there is it's hard to get my story out there. I've got a big platform. I can defend myself if people say bad things about me, whatever those might be, if I choose to react to it. But a lot of people out there don't. And so I would just say everybody should prepare as if everything you do in your life is going to be public at any moment. That's what I tell my kids. That's what I would tell all of you. I want to close. Will you confirm that all this is true, guys, by the way? Actually, you know what? Tomorrow we'll talk about this because who knows what the stories will actually be tomorrow. Roll over. I've talked about the Hunter Biden stuff enough. I've been on Fox News a bunch of times talking about it already. My theory on the Hunter Biden interviews is that he thinks in his mind that he's going to run for president. We've shared some of those clips already. I've gone on Fox News and talked about it. I've talked about it a lot at Clay and Buck. That's old news to me at this point. That's my take on it. But I have not given you my full Mamdani take. I believe he's in Uganda right now. Let's roll that over for tomorrow, guys. Let's also roll over. Can you guys grab some clips? Are we going to get dinged for this? I don't know. I want to talk about men and dads in sitcoms. And unfortunately, there's a connection with Theo Huxtable, Malcolm Jamal Warner dying in Costa Rica, drowning. I think that's a jumping off point for this discussion tomorrow. If we can grab some still photographs, I don't know what we're allowed to play of old school sitcoms, dads in particular, and how they are treated. And then also, I want to talk about the distinction between Colbert on the one hand, getting fired by Paramount CBS. And on the other hand, same company, reports are that $1.5 billion being paid to the Comedy Central duo Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who run South Park, and how those divergent takes in the comedy field are occurring inside of the same company, because I do think that's a good story. But we will talk about all of that tomorrow. I appreciate all of you hanging out with us. Oh, wait, we got a question. Right, guys, help remind me that I'm going to try to do a question every single day. And this question can pop up, at least one. This is from Red Dawn. Great name. Fabulous movie. Wait, yeah, this is it. The moon landing was real. Somebody asked me whether the moon landing was real or not. You can go hop in the YouTube mentions. You can ask questions. Team is going to read them, pick ones that they like. I'll respond to it, try to respond to at least one question in every OutKick show from inside of the YouTube comments. The moon landing was real, but what isn't real is Clay can't beat any woman in the WNBA. Yes, I can. He can't swim Alcatraz. I'm going to swim Alcatraz next year. And he can't kick a 20-yard field goal. I mean, the 20-yard field goal is from the 10-yard line, right? I'm 4'6". I would be stunned if I can't kick a 20-yard field goal. Now, I'm talking about just off of a tee. I'm not talking about like, hey, huge crowds of guys are trying to rush me and block it. I'm talking about just line up and bomb one through from 20 yards. 1 billion% I can make a 20-yard field goal. Maybe we'll have to record this at some point. And who knows? I mean, look, people said I couldn't bench press 185 pounds. I did it 10 times. I am telling you, I can definitely kick a 20-yard field goal. Challenge accepted. Gauntlet thrown here. We'll tape it at some point. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP, I'm Clay Travis. This has been OutKick, the show.